Hey, Mark here from Whole Latte Love, and today, if you're newer to home espresso brewing, I've got 5 areas I want to talk about today, just some general knowledge that's going to help you make a better espresso. So we're going to talk about, hey, what kind of whole bean coffee might I start with? Got some popular ones you might want to take a look at. We're going to talk about grind size and why I can't tell you where to set your grinder for making a really nice espresso. We'll talk about water quality, why it's important not only for flavor, but for protection of your equipment. We're going to talk a little bit about temperature management, and I'll cover the variables involved in making espresso and how to work with those to get the best results. And stick around for the end. We're going to talk about a really cool tool that's going to be beautiful to use and will also help you improve your espresso. So first up, let's talk about whole bean coffee and maybe, a good coffee to start with if you're newer to home espresso. I've got 2 of my favorites here. They're both Italian style bean blends. We've got Lavazza Super Crema and Maroma's Orfea. Now, both of these coffees, very easy to work with. They're kind of forgiving. They're going to produce really nice, rich crema reliably if you're getting your grind right. More on that in a minute. If you've got the urge to go out and start, with a high-end, single origin, expensive coffee, let me tell you, those are going to depend a lot on being very fresh, and they're going to be much more expensive. So you're going to go through a lot of coffee learning the ropes. These 2 coffees, again, they're like, I don't know, about $10 a pound, $20 a kilogram, that kind of price range. And they don't depend on freshness. If you keep these in the original bag, they're going to be just as good maybe 2 or 3 months down the road as they were if you opened them right when you got them. Very forgiving. I just love the Orfea, is my favorite. Our customers really like the Orfea too. Gets 4.5 out of 5 stars, and there's something like 125 reviews. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can use the link up here to go right to our whole bean coffees and check out the reviews on these 2, and you get a better idea of what these coffees are all about. So you've got a nice, easy coffee picked out to work with. Now you need to get to a grind size. And it's a question I get all the time in those comments. If you have questions, use those comments. I'll be more than happy to help you out. A question I get all the time is, where do I set my grinder for a really good espresso? And I can't possibly answer that. And why is that? Well, because grind size is going to depend on other variables like how much coffee you're using in your portafilter, the type of coffee you're using, and even with, if you're using the same coffee, as that coffee ages a little bit, the grind size is likely to change a little bit. But I've got a solution. I've got a great video on dialing into grind size to get a good espresso. It's linked right up here. So check that out. It'll show you how to do that. Now, the grinders I have here, I've got a Baratza Sette 270. This is a high-end appliance-grade grinder. That's what I consider it. Really nice for home use. Makes a beautiful, fluffy grind. It does it fast. It's low retention. It has macro and micro adjustments for getting into the right grind size. Really like this. There's also a weighing version of this, so if you want to make sure you're using the same weight every time, the W270WI does the weighing automatically for you as the coffee grinds. It's pretty cool. Very, very respected grinder for home espresso grinding. If you want to go high-end, something you can have around for decades, this is the latest Chiato E37S grinder. It's got the quick set worm gear adjustment for very, very precise changes in grind size. And those, again, they're incredibly important when making espresso. So you check out that video on dialing in. It'll show you how to get to the right grind size, and understand that once you get there, that grind size over time, or when you make changes in other variables like coffee or dosing weight, the grind size is going to need to change as well. Next up, let's talk water, and 2 reasons we're concerned with water. Number 1, you want a water that's going to give you a nice tasting espresso. That means getting rid of chlorine and having the proper mineral level. Number 2, you want a water quality that is not going to cause scale to build up in your espresso machine, because scale buildup in machines, it's the number 1 reason for machine problems and failures. So what we like is the patented technology of BWT, Best Water Treatment. I've got 3 solutions here. It can cover any type of machine. Their patented technology, what it does is it exchanges calcium in water for magnesium. Now, any of these three systems, we got pads, a pitcher, and an inline cartridge system for plumbed-in machines. They all do the carbon filtration that gets rid of any of the chlorines, that kind of thing. Then they all have that patented technology that replaces calcium with magnesium. And what you come out with, used properly with any of these three options, is water that's within the Specialty Coffee Association specs for brew water, and water, again, that won't cause scale in your machine. So use these right, and you don't have to descale your machine. So what do we got? We have the pad filters here. These you just drop into a reservoir. First time around, they have to soak for 12 hours to do their thing. They come in different sizes for different size reservoirs and capacities. Then we've got the Penguin pitcher. It uses this filter. It's inside of here. I really like this because not only could you fill a reservoir with a machine from this, but you can get a nice drink. And let me tell you, it really makes nice tasting water. I like that. The third option, it's what I use. This is just the cartridge portion of it, but it's an inline system. So this is for plumbed-in machines. Now, if you're new to espresso and you start out with a plumbed-in machine, hey, good for you. I hate filling reservoirs, love plumbed-in machines. This is the BWT Best Max Premium, does all the carbon filtration and has that calcium to magnesium ion exchange. And again, what is really nice about it, they're the only company that has this calcium to magnesium. You know, the other ways you can do water softening with, replacing with sodium, which is going to increase the sodium level in your water. Then there's polyphosphate type systems, which can bind with minerals in the water. Those don't work when you get into really hard water areas. So really, in our opinion, this is the way to go. It's worry-free, again, used properly, no scale. Now, we do have experts that can help you out. These are going to be fine for just about every situation where you're getting municipal tap water. If you have well water, or if you happen to be in an area with incredibly soft water, that can be a problem as well. So you can use the link up here to talk to our experts, and they can get you to the right water treatment solution. And I just want to mention one other thing here with water. Well, two other things, really. A lot of times people say, well, I'm just going to use distilled or pure reverse osmosis water in my machine, and you don't want to do that. There's no minerals in that. So number one, the taste is going to be really off. Number two, you can get the opposite of scale, which is corrosion of metal components. So you'll never see reverse osmosis or distilled water carried in metal piping or containers. The reason why? It's such a good solvent, it can pull things out of the metal and cause corrosion. In fact, we've had boilers come back from people who've done that to our repair facility, and you'll see corrosion around where, components thread into a boiler and stuff, and then they start leaking. So stay away from that. One other thing I want to mention about water. So if you have a heat exchange boiler machine or a dual boiler machine, so it's got a separate steam boiler, and you do a lot of steaming and you never take water out of the boiler. So you open the tap and let some water out of that boiler. What can happen over time is you can accumulate, even if you're treating properly, you can accumulate minerals in that water and cause scale. So always a good idea on heat exchange and dual boiler machines to, every once in a while, maybe, once a day if you're using the machine a lot. So, just run a cup of water out of that boiler. That way you're turning over water and decreasing the mineral level in there. So next up, let's talk about temperature management. Two things I really want to go through here. First is just, you got to let machines warm up. And it kind of depends a little bit on what kind of machine you're using. Talk more about that in a sec. Also, special instructions for those of you with a single boiler machine. This is a machine where you cannot brew and steam at the same time. So you either brew or steam, and whichever you want to do first, that's up to you. But the important part is cooling down a boiler after steaming. So let's say you're going to brew your espresso on your single boiler machine. You brew it, and you want to steam some milk for a latte or a cappuccino. So you push a button, you wait for a little while as it gets up to steam temperature, then you do your steaming. Then you're done, right? Well, not quite. You need to cool that boiler down, and what that means is putting some water back into the boiler after steaming. If you don't do that on some machines, you risk damaging the heating coil that's inside the boiler there, because it can become exposed as you're taking water out with the steam. So you need to cool that back down. Now, just getting a machine warmed up. So depending on what type of machine you have, It could range anywhere from maybe 5 minutes up to 20 minutes for the really big dual boiler machines with these 61 groups. One thing you always want to do when any machine is warming up is keep the portafilter locked into the group. That'll warm this up. This one's a heavy commercial one. It's at least a pound here of metal that gets warmed up and really helps with that thermal stability. On some of the really entry-level espresso appliance type machines, I'm talking in these that sub $200 range maybe. They're going to have much lighter weight portafilters, really not much of a group head with much mass to it. In general, honestly, those machines, they don't produce all that great a temperature to begin with. But if that's where you got to start, that's fine. Or you can learn the ropes with those. It's one reason why is a really solid entry-level machine. I've always recommended the Gaja Classic. Really the best value in entry-level espresso. It uses full size and weight. Commercial portafilter, has a large group head, an actual boiler. You got the new Pro model now that has true professional style manual steaming, so you can do a really fine milk froth, and it's an actual machine that you can take apart and work on 10 years down the road if you need to replace something. Those entry-level appliances, you really can't. So the temperature management, let the machine warm up. There are a couple tricks you can do to help things along, like running blank shots through empty portafilters to help get those warm faster. If you want a machine, if it has a mechanical power switch on it, you generally can put that on a timing switch, so you can have the machine turn on kind of all by itself, so it's warmed up and ready to go when you are. So let's talk about the variables involved in making espresso and how to work with those to be more successful. So what are some of the variables? You've got dosing weight, grind size, the quality of your distribution and tamping of your coffee in the portafilter, and to a lesser extent, maybe your brew temperature, and perhaps you might include the type of coffee you're doing there as well. But the major ones really are going to be grind size and dosing weight, and those are where I want you to focus. So if you watch that dialing in grind size video, it's very important as you change the grind size to keep the same dosing weight. So dosing weight, there are grinders like the Baratza 270WI who can, pretty much put the exact same weight of coffee into your portafilter every time. If you don't do that, you might consider a scale so that you can weigh out how much coffee you're using, because you change grind size, and if you're using a timed grinder and you change the grind size, then the weight of coffee that's going to be ground is going to change as well. Another big variable that's really easy to deal with is distribution and tamping. Now, it used to be, for a long time, I used a tamper like this. This is an Espresso calibrated tamper. It's kind of a push thing, so it gives when you hit it 30 pounds. And that was the recommendation for a long time, is you want to use 30 pounds of force when you tamp. Now, over the last few years, maybe 4 or 5 years or so, that 30-pound thing, that's kind of not so much a thing. At least it isn't for me. I've gone to using a leveler. If you've been watching my videos recently, I am just in love with levelers, because what this does, you just put it on here, and rather than maybe with a tamper you might end up a little off kilter like this. It's going to distribute the coffee as you spin it, because of the little fins, and it's also going to make it perfectly level because this sits on top. So you're never going to have to worry about an unlevel thing. The problem with distribution is tamping, and if you're not distributing well or tamping unevenly, you're going to make an area in that coffee puck where water can go through easier, and like most things, the water when you're brewing is going to seek the path of least resistance, so you're going to get over extraction in one area and under extraction in another area, and it's going to make it very difficult to appraise a shot if you're having channeling. So I really do like the levelers. I don't, tampers are fine. Lots of people still do it, and some people even level and tamp. I don't. This compresses the coffee to the point where you can generally, if your grind size is right, generally knock out a puck when it's dry and it stays intact, even before you're brewing. Now, one other tool, I told you right at the top of this video, there's one other tool that's really going to help you improve your technique, and it's also really beautiful and fun to use, and that is a bottomless portafilter. Now, I really recommend, to really learn espresso, a bottomless portafilter can really, really help you out. Because what it does is, you'll be able to see how the coffee develops as the shot starts down here. And what you want is it develop evenly from all parts of the portafilter. If it's coming out of one area more than another, you've got a problem with distribution or tamp, or if you're getting spurts out of an area of the portafilter, that generally indicates some channeling. And if you're using a spouted portafilter, you can't see what's happening down there. So it's a really good tool to help you appraise the quality of your distribution and tamp. And it's also really pretty. If you're working with certain coffees, they'll get that tiger striping and that nice little cone of juicy espresso dripping into your cup. I love showing off to friends with that. You probably will too. So that's the 5 kind of simple things about, if you're just getting into espresso. If you have any questions about those or any comments, use the comment section down there. I do keep a close eye on those, and I try to answer everyone personally. Again, I'm Mark from Whole Latte Love. Thanks for watching. I do hope you'll subscribe to the channel and come on back soon for more of the best on everything coffee. Want to learn more? Subscribe now so you'll know about the latest videos on everything coffee from Whole Latte Love.